Yep,
I'll just say,
there we go.
okay. Um, Talk to me, man. What's going on?
So, just so I am was certainly captivated the very first moment, I saw the your one page approach to things is really really interesting to me. And then our workshop, I love the approach there. And um, look, you covered this in your presentation. Been burned many times, and have flushed a whole lot of money down the drain with getting Google ads and stuff like that. But I think that this is a good match. I feel very comfortable with you, and I love this approach. I mean, uh, you, Mike, I'm guessing that you might be or familiar with Aaron Fletcher or Simon Bowen.
I know, well, I should say of. I know of Simon's work. I know of Aaron's work. I've seen different frameworks and stuff that they both have. So, but yeah, it's not like I've gone through their program or met them at events or anything. But yeah, I'm familiar.
I think it'll help me go follow into your process because there's some, it's not the same thing, but there's definitely some, connections there. Um, and the hurdle for me is finding a way to um, I'm going to be very transparent about what my problems are here, what I bring to the table, because in all of those relationships of programs I've joined, there's always, you can't escape you when you're
Yeah.
doing. I do much better when I'm working with someone. My problem is I'm very good at getting to 80%, and from 80 to 100%, like the failure to launch thing is a very, definitely an issue for me. Um, I guess fortunately is part and parcel with that is I don't give up. Like I've done 9 Ironmans so far. I've done the Ironman World Championships a couple of times. Like I'm my own worst enemy, and so I think having someone that will keep us moving and hold me accountable, and I will do the work. It's just that the whatever we comes to that, getting it out the door. That's a big part. I mean, look, the strategy, everything I've heard so far, that is like that sounds fantastic. And if you can, look, just the way I at least the way I'm understanding it that we would work. I mean, it's like a done with you kind of thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. 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 Can I ask a couple questions just to go
Please,
back so I can recontextualize? Because I
absolutely.
nothing to do with you, but I talk to a lot of people with a lot
I'm
of different
sure.
offers. So give me
Yeah,
give me the lowdown on what your offer is, what
yeah,
you've
yeah.
and also your experiences and what you felt like was the bottleneck.
Um, so let me just get a little more specific. The bottleneck in terms of my marketing challenges
Well,
or
you
my
saying
challenges when I'm when I've asked for help, whatever you want to call that.
um
Which one of those or
I'm
both?
mostly interested in, and you don't have to name names. I'm interested in what your offer is, what they told you, these other high ticket programs, what they told you they were going to actually help you do, and then what ultimately happened.
Okay. Um, so my offer is it's called the retention roadmap, and we help companies retain their best people
Okay.
without just throwing money around. And within, it's like between 90 and 120 days, this thing kind of pays for itself
Okay.
because it's the what I always talk about is the average employee, if they don't work out, and we're talking about a manager, so this is not shooting high, like really, you know, uh, your highest paid employees. But if the average manager, if they don't work out, that costs a company 40 grand.
Oh, wow. Just in time to replace, retrain, find a new candidate, all that
And
stuff.
that's not even talking about the loss to productivity, the delay in projects, because that part of the operation was removed. And
Okay.
so there's a good case for this. Um, when um, I generally target, I have two different targets, and it's a CMO if I'm going around the back door, because CMOs generally lead like rebranding efforts. I mean, the CEO leads a rebranding effort, but the CMO is like, they're slugging it out. They're in the trenches. If a
Okay.
company's doing a rebranding, I've got a really high slugging percentage. And so that's one of the things I talk when I'm talking to CEOs, presidents, and founders. When the founder's there, that's like the really easy. That's the easy pickings, because what happens is um, when a company grows to, I found somewhere between 20 and 40 employees, the founder is usually that element of the hiring process that is hiring based on fit, whatever culture fit, whatever you want to call that. Think about it as like an iceberg. Like the top is skill set, but really the whether an employee is going to work out for a company has a lot more to do with soft skills and culture fit than anything else. Founders get that. They can't do it anymore because they need to be working on the business, not in the trenches hiring people,
Yeah.
right? So I target above that, and then it can be up to, I just stop at like 1,000, because at that point companies get a little too bureaucratic. I've done projects with really big companies. I can do it. It's not a great match. So I just push it away. Um,
Where
unless a founder is still there, then I'm kind of still interested.
where are the people that you've worked with? Where did they come from? How
They
did you
come from
get?
my network. That's the problem. They come from my network.
Okay.
It's they work with me, or somebody that I'm connected with.
So I think in what you're implying there, and correct me if I'm wrong, you got to expand outside your network, and how do we get in front of those people? So that's
Yep,
one thing. Okay, I'm sometimes I'm reflecting back to you just so the recording grabs it so I can.
totally. All good.
So the programs that you've been in before, what were they telling you they were going to be able to do? And then where did you feel like where it didn't come to fruition? But I also want to address something else, which is
Sure.
if you've never done Colby test or visionary integrator traction style stuff, it just sounds to me like you're a lot of an idea person, and it's not that you can't execute, but like getting it to the finish line. If you haven't taken the Colby test,
I have. I'm aware of those shortcomings,
okay. So
and
I just
and
wanted,
I'm working on. Yeah, I've. Yes, I hear
I
you.
didn't, I got the feeling you were slightly beating yourself up, and I'm like, you're just
No, no,
that's
slightly is
just,
is an understatement.
but that's how you're wired, man. That's
I
not
know.
worth beating up. Okay, all right, okay, cool.
Yeah. What else? Oh, so what did they say? What did they promise, and what did they do? Okay, and what happened? Um, in in GrowthWorks, there's something going on there where everything just stopped. I don't know if the company's in trouble or something like that, because I was in their coaching program, and it was like not done. It's like done with you ish. So like group coaching, which is like that's kind of done with, typical done with you stuff. But there's something happened, and so there was no one to support me, and frankly, there was time for me to get it done. So why didn't I push it out the door? You're looking at the man who's at fault for that. So
But
um,
was the intention of that program to get clients?
yeah,
Okay, all right.
yep. I have a 80-90% done funnel.
Okay.
That it What my thinking is, um, I can do, this can be on parallel paths. Like I can be doing content marketing on a parallel path. If there's an aspect to paid. whatever. Uh,
What type, can I ask what type of funnel that you're building or almost built?
so it's a lead magnet. There's basically like three main steps in Aaron's approach with like three steps under each. So you take one of the nine steps, which are literally, I like it made perfect sense. Like there kind of are nine steps in my operations, like the way it works. So I've taken the one that uh, I've done I've done work with past clients, and hey, what do you know, which of these would you know, if you could rewind the clock, would you have been most interested in? You know, we'll have to see. Um, but so it's taking the lead magnet, and then it has what Aaron calls like an authority amplifier, but a classic like conversion video to get you to be on a strategy call. And then he's got a really nice long-term nurture sequence. He's got a good, nice delivery sequence and a nice long-term nurture sequence, and then a sequence to make sure people follow up. He uses his technologies go high level, and so
Yep.
he gives you like the templates
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
built into go high level. Um, I am, and I, you know, after having said what I just said, um, I'm I'm pretty much done. My designer is helping me clean things up, but I'm all in. Like I was an ad man for a long time. If you ever heard that guy, uh, can you hear me now walking around? That was one of my campaigns. I've been doing like advertising where clients would pull me in for projects. And then I've been doing the purpose and culture stuff. Sometimes an add-on would be positioning and messaging for the purpose and culture, but I'm all in on the purpose and culture. I've got a new name, which I'm thrilled with.
Yep.
And, you know, I'm really happy with, you know, sort of my elevator pitch and with the value proposition with that. And um, you know, one of my designers is wrapping things up. So I'm rebranding the GrowthWorks as Aaron's thing and getting that thing cleaned up. But this thing looks very interesting, and it actually reminds me, Aaron has two approaches. He's got like a lead magnet funnel, and what he calls, I think you use the term, but he's using it a little bit differently, a tripwire funnel.
Yep.
Essentially, what so he's calling it a he actually has evolved in the last 6 months to a $1,000 strategy call that you basically do the nine steps as a checklist, and that's so um, I'm going to use my funnel, the content thing, if I have any bandwidth available beyond working with you, and then you know we'll do the you know I'm I'm very good at following a plan, and you know, as much as I've learned a lot from these folks, you know, I think if we're if this turns into me trying to duct tape a bunch of things together, I think it's going to be a mess. But I'm just trying to give you context to where I've been, the kind of
Do you have, because look, I'm not allergic to money. I'm not trying to not sell you everything that I have, but I'm also like minimum viable effort, fastest route to cash flow.
yeah.
Do you have because I don't know that strategy about I mean, it conceptually makes sense, but I don't know the strategy of the $1,000 call. How does that?
You're so you're selling, so you're doing what he calls a triage call,
Yeah.
which is you're not selling the 45-minute call. You're selling the 15-minute quick triage call. And in that call, you're using um, you're using your roadmap, those nine steps, as a checklist. And then you're saying, hey, look, you can do this yourself. Um, but we have a 1 hour strategy call where we're going to go through and we're going to dive into each of those steps, and we're going to record a video, and we're going to show you exactly what's going on in your business and why you're having these problems, and um, and then you know if you decide to continue working with us, great. If not, you're going to have this in your hands and have at it, and go ahead and take a whack at it.
Do you have that entire process dialed in?
No.
Okay. So you have the funnel built, but you haven't had the
Uh,
process dialed. If okay, let me
I
rephrase
mean,
it.
I have Aaron's process. I haven't built it into I haven't built it into Go High Level. I've built I have to redo the authority amplifier and tweak the sequences because I've changed the name of it. But the 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 regular lead magnet is, like, by the end of next week, I could have that ready to go. Uh, and let that and do some, do an occasional, Aaron has an approach to content marketing that is pretty interesting. That why didn't I do it before today? Why didn't I do it last week, 3 weeks ago, 4 months ago? That's on me. I don't know. Get it. Let's get a couch and I can lie down and maybe we can figure it out that way.
Um,
It's beyond frustrating. That's why it's like, I think I could keep banging my head against the wall, or I can have someone do this with me and we can figure it out that way.
all right, I'm gonna give you a couple things to think about. One is that mindset stuff, and I'm not a mindset coach, but I'm going to share what my experience was and what happened. But I want to talk about the funnel again, because again, if you have certain th so what I really like doing is, hey, tell me what you have in place. Let's figure out when and if the slide might make sense in something that you already have built, so we're not
Okay,
building extra shit.
sure.
So if you have the lead magnet funnel dialed in and you think you could figure out his triage to
To the strategy, $1,000
the
strategy call.
strategy call,
Okay.
it doesn't seem like you should abandon that totally yet. How I would see, without knowing a little bit more context about that, a potential outlet is getting the slide dialed in, not messing with any of that process yet. So what the slide would do is, and I would do the slide in the messaging piece with you first, so that we could figure out the messaging that would make the most sense for ads to your lead magnet, using the process that's already in place to get some cash flow coming in, where you could have that triage and that $1,000 call, and then hopefully that turning into a client, and potentially using the, and I'd have to understand more about, I know what his 9-step thing looks like,
Yeah.
um, but figuring out where we could leverage the slide in that whole process, which would A, get that out the door, but B, also shortcut and amplify the possible success of it,
Yep.
instead of going down the road and rebuilding a whole thing from the ground up, which is what we would do together. It'd be a different funnel, right? Um, and also testing and validating the message of what that lead magnet does and is, right? Right. So there's going to be processes in what you already have. I don't know how he tells you to select a lead magnet based on everything that you do, but like that takes some testing. But with a lead magnet, it's a lot less expensive to test, because the cost of getting somebody to opt in for a lead magnet is a lot less than the cost of trying to get somebody to buy something.
All
Even
right.
if even if it's $17 or
Mm-hmm.
$7, it's still going to cost you more to get the lead. Now, what I talked about is the difference in quality of lead, but I
Right.
don't know Aaron's process, so I don't want to crap on Aaron's process if
That's why he does the $1,000 thing. That's because um, you're that's that's how you're qualifying them. They're not going to spend $1,000, and they get to take that $1,000 off of your
right,
high
right.
ticket. Um, so
But do you? if it hasn't been built out yet, do you feel comfortable and confident enough that you could build that piece out? Because that's the missing link. 'Cause that's the bridge from the lead magnet into them working with you longer term, right? I
Yeah.
don't teach Aaron's method, so I can't. You could show me what it looked like and I could give you my input, but it's not my method.
There's I think there are enough people in that community that I've already sent a couple of emails out, like
Okay.
one to the former coach,
Okay.
like asking about what's going on and could she like give some help on this $1,000 strategy thing. So I will poke around in the community and see if see what are the idiosyncrasies of that, because it's yeah, look, it sounds really interesting. Um, and I will say one other piece that I'll in full disclosure, about 3 months ago, there's a group of it's a company called Lightbulb, and they're a British company, and they do out outbound sales, and they charge you $100 for a qualified call, and it has not it hasn't it had I've got one call and the guy didn't show up, and there's a fairly significant, not significant, there is a multiple hundreds of dollars a month for all the software to get it to work, because you can't send cold email on a regular email address.
Right,
And
right, right.
so um,
So you hold
they
on. You said cold call. You meant cold email.
cold email,
Okay.
cold email. Yeah. And I'm just kind of disconnecting, because I don't know what I'm going to do with these guys. I might just let them go, because I've already paid for the first 5 calls and they're going to continue working. But that has I bring it up because I could test, and this is something that I was actually talking to them about uh, on Monday morning, um, because I could test the messaging for the $1,000 call. I could leverage those guys to test that messaging a bit.
Are you trying to do, but you're selling them or selling them, you're offering the triage call on the cold emails, right? Not the $1,000.
Correct. Yeah, the cold emails are getting them on the phone, and then they're setting up the strategy call.
Okay. Okay. Cold email is not my specialty, but I do know that it is a purely volume game. And you've got to crank out a lot of cold emails to try to get what you're doing.
Yeah, and they're not doing a long-term nurture sequence with it, which
Yeah, and it's
seems,
I get cold emails all day long and they just immediately get deleted
yeah.
because um
I
not to
just
the
wanted to mention that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
This is
I,
something that okay, and then let me talk about something. Your frustration with not having gotten to the 100% like launch point, end point, and all that stuff. I will tell you, in my uh this is purely anecdotal, but I was running for a very long time, I was running ads to um a 12-minute VSL, just a 12-minute video training. Hey, if the principles of this slide make sense, book your call, right? So on our workshop together, I was like, hey man, I was doing 30 to 35 of these things a week, which was a nightmare. And I
30
do
to 35 of those strategy calls.
a week,
Yep. And what was your percentage? Your win percentage?
10%.
Yeah, that's what you had mentioned.
But here's the thing, it doesn't even matter if it was 30%. You will want to kill yourself doing 30 hours a week of call. It's I would open up my Google Calendar and like have like it wasn't even panic, it was just dread of like I'm gonna be on Zoom 5 hours back to back every day this week. This sucks. Um,
Yeah.
that's not the point. I just knew I needed to do something different.
Yeah.
Here's the deal, man. I knew I needed to do something for a year before I actually did it. And I knew that this is the crazy part that I cannot, and what I want to share with you, and maybe it'll uncover some of the stuckness that you're feeling about this completion rate. I was having the funnel that I have now that you guys walked through could have been done 15 months earlier. 15 months earlier. In fact, I talked to people about, hey, I'm not a designer. I want this design. I got this thing. I'm going to do this. 15 months. I was still sucking up the pain and doing the 30 hours a week thing. And I would have full scale adult tantrums in the house with my wife, not at her. I'd just be having a meltdown. She's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I know I need to do this thing, but I'm staying here and I'm miserable about it." And I would have periodic, I can probably count five at least, full scale. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I want to do this anymore. What is going on? You know this is going to work, and you're still not doing it. I mean, talk about just beating myself up.
Yeah.
And I was literally like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't even know what I'm going to do. I mean, it was existential
It's
craziness.
like, how could I get myself to ride 100 miles every Saturday, to work out twice a week, twice a day, on most days, one day off a week, while I'm doing like working at like a top end Madison Avenue ad agency, which is crazy hours, often working, Saturday too.
Yeah.
So I would have to get back from the 100-mile ride to go to work by 11 or 12. Like, how could I get myself to do that? But I can't do this. Like, it's like,
This is what I think it is. And so I was having my bedroom is at the other end of the house, and I had just finished having a meltdown again. And I was staring out the window like I was in a mental institution. Like I was just like zoned staring out. And it was literally the moment that you see in a movie where a decision has to be made, where you're either going to shit or get off the pot. And I stood there and I was like, I don't want to do this because I don't want to have another tantrum and because I'm absolutely freaking miserable taking all these calls every week. And I had this epiphany in that moment that I was like, wait a second. If I didn't do this, first off, I'd regret it and feel like a piece of shit that I didn't go through with something that I know is going to work. And then the other part of me, I just had this massive, like, felt like a shovel to the face. And I was like, wait a second, man. This has nothing to do with your business. This is literally you evolving as a human being. And if you choose not to move forward in this moment, you will be forever regretful that you have not taken the opportunity to be a better human being. And so for me, it was an identity crisis and an identity shift because similar to you working for these other companies and doing this other stuff, I was like, I'm now about to have to put myself out there in a way that I've never put myself out there before. And so for me, it was some weird, and I don't even know, and I didn't even have to pinpoint it, but I was like, there's something about me coming out as the giant face of my own business that is terrifying the shit out of me. And I'm going to do this. It wasn't even a business decision, Brian. When I made the decision to move forward, it was a personal development decision. Because if I didn't do this and didn't complete what I knew was been on my plate for a year and a half, I would not be evolving as a human being.
yeah,
Everything that I did from that point forward was this is going to be uncomfortable. I did I did not do Ironmans, but I did some Olympic level and I played sports my whole life, right? What do they say? Put your fucking game face on, embrace the suck. Parts of it are going to suck and fucking do it.
yeah.
And It changed everything, man. And because I knew instead of me resisting the suck and resisting the I don't want to do that, I'm like, I have to do this as a person. So
That's
I
where
don't
I
know
am.
if that helps
Uh,
you at all.
no, it does. Look, that's where I am. I'm I've never been the entrepreneurial one. And I'm even as I say that statement, I literally have been working with a resilience coach, like who's worked with like Navy SEALs and lots of executives. So I'm acknowledging that that's not great language to use. Let's just say in my family, my brother is a couple of year older than I am, and he was always like the he's the one that got the newspaper route that we did. He's the one that started his own company. I always work for other people. I have to do this. I don't need to be what my brother does, who, he sold his company for an ungodly amount of company twice. I just need to do this for me. And I like this is going to work. If I used any of the things and really did 1,000%, I don't know how to get it out of my own way. I've tried pretty much everything. And I mean, personal development, I've I've invested and put the time and energy into it. And so uh, I like the path that you're going down, which is let's see if we can re-engineer. Let's see if we can engineer. Um, I can share the assets that I have, and then you know m- between today and tomorrow can do a fair amount of pulling together. Like I'm a big mind mapper. I'm a big process guy,
Yep.
and I can put the process. I'm gonna go through and put some detail into the two phases of that process, the triage call and then the actual call, and share that with you. That's those are some things, and it whatever else you know
I just
you
want to
think.
understand, diagram the funnel. I want to understand what your lead magnet is. And I want to understand that you understand because I don't teach this. I don't know how
Yeah.
to triage to $1,000 call. That's what you would have to buckle down and figure out. I could
Mhm.
help you. Hey, now that you've explained it to me and understand what you're doing,
There's a
maybe,
video where Aaron literally takes you through the whole thing. It's only like a 20-minute long thing. And I've just like yesterday I watched it twice and put some notes. I'm gonna pull that and anything else I can find. And I'm gonna reach out to that former coach and see if she has any and if there are any assets that go with that.
yeah. And I don't know. We also, the other thing that we don't know is like, well, you couldn't do a group situation because everybody's triage is going to be different. Um,
They are going to be different, but basically the way that it goes is you're the checklist. So there are each step has its own, like he calls it the $1 million message, and so um, I started writing the questions that I would ask for each of those 9 questions. Everyone would have different, similar but different answers, but they're filling it out for themselves. You know what I mean? Like let's say you're one of the people there. First we're going to start with, hey, um, do you hire people based on skill set, or is there a little special sauce there? Like, do you have a system to hire people who are going to be a good fit for you? We call it culture fit, whatever, however you think of that. Do you have that now? Yes or no? And that's that's the scorecard that you're creating for that $1 million. You do like in 15 minutes, you do that really quickly, and then that's what the hour, or it can be even longer if he says for newbies it could take up to 90 minutes. But you're going through that with the
That's the
person.
part I just want you to be super clear. If we do take what you have mostly built,
Yeah,
I'm not going to be able to give you the level of insights and advice that Aaron will
understood.
on that transition from
Got it.
triage to $1,000 call. Now, once you're on the $1,000 call, it seems like a place where we could introduce the slide for, hey, here's my big engagement, right? So you could potentially leverage the slide into selling them into, I don't know how much you charge for the 90-day
It's,
engagement.
it's a 20 to 40K thing, depending upon the size of the company.
That's where the slide would come into place at the end of your $1,000 call. If
Hmm.
you stuck with what you already have built. The other thing
Yep.
I need to see is what lead magnet and why they chose that lead magnet, what it is and why they told you to choose that one. And I'm not saying it's bad because I haven't even seen it. I would like to know their process.
Yeah. I mean, my instinct is that like the one of the fundamental tenets of culture is that you can't teach someone your values. Like you really can't. You've got to hire people who already have them. And so, um, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen like Netflix has a famous presentation that's gone around the internet a million times on culture. There's other people that, and I learned a lot from the Netflix guys. That's actually where I got it started. But look, you can see all nine of them, and we could look at that. And
Oh, you've
um,
created 9 lead magnets.
I can't. I mean, he has a system where you can just hit a button and it'll design the lead magnet for you. Just have to tweak it. So I've only designed the one for hiring, like I call it hire like a founder.
Okay.
Um, and again, I have these things, and I'm going to collect these and send you like a I don't know iCloud link or something like that, or Google link or something. I can share. And and interestingly, um, Aaron used to use something that looked a lot like your more Simon Bowen from what I understand. So I'll share that with you as well. Which uh, when I first met Aaron years ago, and I really wasn't that involved. And I just dug this out over time because I had heard of Simon Bowen, and um, anyway, I'll share these. I'll share these. Not too many things, but there's like there's the piece of the one of nine, which is its own lead magnet. It's like 5 pages, and then really one page is the lead magnet, and then it's like you know the sort of the salesmanship that's done around that, and then you show the whole process last. But I will show you. I'll send you what I think to give you context to this, as well as putting the $1,000 process into like a process, like
I
getting
want to
it mapped out.
understand, but I don't, here's what I need to understand that I'm not communicating well. How
Okay.
they tell you to choose the lead magnets that you choose and why.
They just like if I was doing a positioning or you were doing a positioning and messaging exercise, the first thing that any good um, marketing person would do is firsthand research. So people that have the problem. And so, what they tell you to do is, so if you have clients, thankfully I had clients, go to your former clients, have the conversation, say, hey, which 9 steps is most appealing to them?
Got it. That's
And
what I wanted
so,
to know.
yeah, that's the way they
And
they
they all,
suggest you do it.
okay. And the central theme was hiring is what came out of that. That's why you created the lead magnet that you did.
Hiring by the well, I mean, I already had the part of my process, so it's hiring by values, right?
Hiring by values. I'm super curious because I would want to know if that was the most appealing thing to them after they worked with you.
That was the most appealing. That's a fair question.
Because here, you need to understand this. Because if they didn't think that was the problem before they were hiring with you, it's not a good
Yeah.
lead magnet.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I can what I could do is I could ask my LinkedIn network and say, hey, I'm doing a little research and I have a favor to ask. I could see if I could automate this without me going down a rabbit hole and do it really quickly, or just say, hey, can you give me 15 minutes? I want to, and because I'll just ask anyone that has like a professional services business, because it's like any business has a lot of people. That's what you want, especially onshore. Offshore, probably not that helpful. So anyone that has a professional services business, any consulting firm, um, it could even be an ad agency or a design firm. Um, I think I have my own baggage there. Um, they're very resistant. I know ad agencies are very resistant to outside consultants. So that is my stage two. When I've got a ton of when I maybe this is like my internal work that I need to do, but I think there's a time, but I think I need to get this thing built out more. I've got a good chunk
Hold
of
on,
case
hold on.
studies.
You have so many carts ahead of the horse. I need you to
Okay,
understand
sorry.
this. It's
Yeah.
okay. Or none of the carts are going to run.
Okay.
So there's a huge difference between what people tell you they enjoyed most about the process and what they learned about, which is what sounds like they were saying it was the high, whatever you
Yep.
said. What we need to understand is before they were working with you,
Yeah.
what was the biggest problem they felt like
I'll do
they,
that interview. That's what those people will get me. I got it.
but did you see the distinction though?
100%. Did they work with you? No. I'm asking
No, no, no,
people.
no, no, no. That's not the distinction. The
What's that?
distinction is after somebody works with you, they have a completely different perspective than they did
Understood.
before they worked with you.
Understood.
So we want what they thought their problem was before they started working with you. And the lead magnet should address the problem that they think they have before working with you, not, hey, what was the
They
coolest?
didn't. So okay. I think I can answer that a bit better. They the they they were doing a rebrand. All of these companies with a couple exceptions. Most every company was doing a rebrand. And when I just told them how it worked, they were like, when companies are rebranding, they have a budget. And this isn't that much extra. They were like, that sounds great. So, they'll have to do some thinking about that, but it's not like, um,
But
so
what
you
sounds
are,
great? That's what sounds great. When they say this sounds great, what sounds great?
um, well, they're like the, depends who the person is, like the being able to be, the core thing that lights them up is just being able to grow without losing their identity.
Hold on, dude. We're so far. I need to pull you way back and get you to
That's
figure.
what the CEOs, that's what they would tell me. So why would we also do a purpose and culture project in addition to the website rebrand that we're doing? So what was their problem? Their problem was that um, they would feel like, when we were smaller, uh, this was a little bit different place. It was obviously, you knew everyone by the first name, but but there was just like the way everyone communicated with each other, and there'd be some scruffy personalities that I think would make them like not thrilled with going to meetings and stuff like this. And often that happens in sales, and they would just have like an attitude, because this was a lot of like really talented people that had like low egos. Like they weren't like, didn't have big chips on their shoulder. And so that was one of the things that they talked about is just being able to capture the way the company was before they got bigger.
So they want to retain the original company culture no matter the size that they grow to. So when you describe a rebrand, I have a certain vision of what that means in my head. What do these people think is going to be the problem with when they rebrand, where you come in and say, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and what is this? So they have a perceived problem. We're about to rebrand. Are
Yeah.
they
So they're
aware before the rebrand? Are they
right.
aware that the culture is going to feel differently after the rebrand.
Was that their problem that they were aware
No,
of?
no, no. Are they aware? Are generally speaking, people who go through a rebrand, are they thinking, man, I really hope we can contain?
That's not why they're doing it. Sometimes, but it's not the it's there's this weird thing with there have been studies on this. They're the last presidents, founders, and CEOs, and they'll say, "Yeah, that's a big problem. It's like one of the top three problems." And the others are, are we
But
just don't.
I haven't yet comprehended what that big problem is that you just said. This is the big problem.
Companies rebrand because they're either having a problem with sales or they're not standing out. A rebrand typically will get to like a nugget. Like you'll dive into a nugget. I would dive in. What's that nugget? What is that? What's our special sauce? That's
Okay.
the language sometimes I use. That
So it's
if they're going to do
the number
that's
one problem. I know there's multiple problems. What would you say the biggest reason people rebrand is?
rebrand is that they want to clear differentiation.
Okay. So that's phase one. If you stumble into a CEO or a company that's doing a rebrand because of that reason, they want differentiation. You've said a couple times, when I approach somebody in the middle of who's about to do a rebrand with X, and I still need to understand what X is, they say that seems like a no-brainer. What is X? When you stumble across a company or a founder that's doing a rebrand, you're like, hey man, my name's Brian. This is what I do, and this is why it makes sense under the context of a rebrand. What is X?
Well, when you're doing a mission, vision, values is often a part of it. But here's a really quick thing that I'll tell you.
Hold on, man. You got to get this.
Look,
What?
they'll it's part of the mission, vision, values, right? And I remember the one of the first projects I did, they said, hey, you're a copywriter, but you're also a strategy guy. We need to rewrite our mission, vision, values. You're a copywriter, you can do that.
Okay.
And so it was like, if you if you think that you need a copywriter to do this, you've already failed.
Okay.
It goes like that. This is a whole thing. It's like not that complicated. They were like, well, tell me how to do it. And I was like, I'm gonna look, if we're gonna do a vision, we're not gonna just do something that like, is sounds good and it's like corporate speak. I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna put the CEO in a hot seat. That's we're gonna do the vision. For the values, we're not gonna do these nice words like that Enron had that made them go out of business. I'm gonna find things that truly are at the heart of your company. And they're like, we're in.
So what
Great.
I'm hearing, you tell me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is they know they need to do a rebrand, and to them, it's like, I don't know, we're going to change our logo and our
It's
colors.
positioning and it's your message, but part of the message also is mission, vision, values.
Okay, so
They
you
just don't know how important it is until I reframe it a little bit. They think they have to do it, they don't know why.
the mission values, um, they
Yeah, they
think,
think they think it's part of a rebrand. Like it is because it is. It's
okay,
like it's part of the rebrand. And but they don't really, they're like, yeah, it's like you have it on your website, so we got to do that too. Can you do that too? Yeah, but not for the reasons why you guys want to do it. And I get a little provocative with them and they love it.
but here's what we have to figure out because this will make or break your ability to do that. Literally, this will make or break your ability to do this. What do they think the problem is? You're coming in and telling them what the problem is. We can't message to that. We have to message to what they think the problem is. That's why a lot of messaging sucks, is
Yeah.
because we're coming in and being like, let me tell you how important vision, values, and whatever else is. And they're like, yeah, I know it's important, but it's just words that I put on the website. Right?
Yeah.
So
Look,
we
they're not
need to
standing
know.
out. They're not standing out. It's the differentiation. It's they're just like, we're just like in a sea of everyone else. And so, that is, it's also applicable to positioning and messaging, but it is a it's I tell companies it's like the silent voice of the brand. It's the thing that no one else can I know what do they think? They're the way they think the problem is we're not standing out. We're just like everybody else. We need to stand out.
That makes sense. But then the next thing I say is if you aren't positioning yourself as a brand strategist, because a lot of people, I assume, would think all of that would be covered in the company that they hired to do the rebrand. So they think that's covered until you say it's not covered the way that you think it's covered. But they're not thinking that. So there is a disconnect
Right.
with how we're going to message if they think it's A covered here and you having to say, no, 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 it's not covered there. But it's going to be very hard to get people's attention who are in the middle of a rebrand who don't know you for you
Yeah.
to say, hey, 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 guys, hold on. Let me tell you how important mission, vision, and values are before we do anything else. And there, if they don't know you and you don't have their ear, they're going to go, well, it's covered by the rebranding company because they told us they're going to do brand messaging. Or they're going to say, hey, this guy Brian is talking about how important this is, and they're going to go to their rebrand guy and go, we're covering this, right? And what's the rebrand guy or company going to say? Oh yeah, yeah, we cover all that. You know, that's not going to be to the depth and specificity and provocation that you bring to the table, but there's no problem yet that I've heard that we can message to that they think
Well,
they
maybe that's the
absolutely.
lead magnet.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you. The lead magnet has to address the problem that they think they have. And I've yet to hear from your perspective the problem that they think they have. We're telling them the problem that you know they have. That
Right.
makes for terrible messaging. Terrible messaging. We always want to message to the problem that they think they have. Once they get in the door, we can say, hey, by the way, we do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So with the doorway in to any offer is always based on one thing and one thing only. The perceived problem they think they have.
Well, how do you do it when the perceived problem is is not the real problem?
You only speak to the perceived problem. That's the only way to get them into the door. I will tell you that anytime you have to use explanation in your marketing, it's not good marketing. And you would have to explain, hey, most branding companies do this and I do this and here's how I do it differently. And they're like, uh, we got a branding company. They already told us mission values and mission vision and values is already included. And so then you're just tearing at a screen, screaming louder and louder. Yeah, but how I do it's different. And if they can't see that and think it's covered in what they've been paid millions of dollars for, right? Or whatever the rebranding budget is, they aren't going to see you. They're only going to see you and pay attention to if you're addressing the problem that they think they have, period. And that's what I've been getting passionate about, trying to elicit in everything that you said here's what I want you to hear and understand. I'm not devaluing what you do at all. It's obviously incredibly valuable, but it's very, very hard to market what you
Yeah,
do if we're not addressing the problem that they think they have. Does that make sense?
it does. It does. I mean,
And you
this
don't have
seems.
to know that problem in this moment, but I've been shouting for 30 minutes trying to tell you all this
I'm
stuff
hearing you. I'm
is
hearing. You.
is cool
Right.
and I get it, but this piece, this is the single missing piece that has to be figured out.
Yeah.
What lead magnet is going to address any problem that they think they have where it would make sense for you to do a triage? The other thing that's going to be tough, and you can process this and digest this and text me questions, but um, would to try to find people in the midst of a rebrand is going to be really hard from a marketing perspective. So imagine putting out an ad that was like, "Hey, are you in the middle of a rebrand?" It's like
Yeah.
trying
That's
to.
why I don't necessarily. It. they don't have to be. I'm just saying that that's easier when they're doing a rebrand because they already have the budget
Yeah.
and you know, uh, but there's like a 20 to $40,000 investment isn't for a company isn't that big of a deal. So, they will do that outside of these rebrands. I was
Yeah.
just giving you that as an example of, when they're doing that, they're, you know, I guess I've either been connected to the company that was doing the rebrand or I was doing it myself.
Right. And that's my point is those are
Got
going to
it.
be far and few between. So what I would say, because I got to jump in a second, what
Sure.
I would say is start thinking about, because you just said, hey, 20 to 40,000 for this is not nothing to a corporation. Give me and start brainstorming other scenarios outside of rebrand where what that triage call that you do actually is, because you build a lead magnet out of a problem, out of a micro, let's call it a micro problem, that would
Right.
then lead them to go, oh, I need this triage call to help dive into this problem better.
Yeah, I think I'm on the beginnings of, I think I know how we could fix that. So I think, yeah,
So let me, and I'm not saying, because a lot of people have shown me Aaron's process. I don't know it inside and out, but as soon as I saw it, this is what, and this is, it just occurred to me in this second why this is hard for you to get the distinction. What Aaron teaches is, correct me if I'm wrong, how to break down the pillars of your process into steps and stages. This is what you do after they work with you.
he talks about the evolution, about like the problem and the promised future. That's part of the message of the roadmap.
But the roadmap's built on miles. But correct me if I'm wrong, but the roadmap itself and the 9 steps is based on your process of getting them from stuck to unstuck, right?
Well, there's a there's the whole roadmap and like the value of the whole thing, and then there's each piece has its own.
Because there's like 9 steps, right?
There's 9 steps. Yeah,
Those steps are based around how you would actually work with somebody. If so, those are based on the pillars of how you work with somebody.
correct. Except the one overall roadmap is is like the problem and the solution to the problem. It's
Okay.
not any of the 9 steps.
Okay. So what the slide does differently is your Aaron Fletcher 9 steps are based on process after they start working with you. The slide is addressing 3 problems and 3 steps to overcome those problems. It's very client problem focused.
Hmm.
Aaron Fletcher's is very, here's how you're going to get to the solution focused. And sometimes it will miss if we haven't been hyper clear on the problems that this makes perfect sense why this is uh, challenging to get across. All problem focused. And here's the steps that are going to solve each little micro problem that we have so that I can get you to the outcome. So pillars, the pillars that this is, and forgive me if I'm getting into the weeds here, but a lot of times people are trying to shoehorn people that I work with who come from Aaron's world, try to shoehorn their process into the problems. And sometimes it's not a perfect match to the problems. And what happens is the process is based on what you, Brian, know are their problems.
Right. I see the distinction. Sure.
The slide is based on what they think their problems are. And that is a
Yeah.
massive difference.
Yeah.
So we've got to dive hyper deep. And Aaron's process is amazing for explaining your process, but it's not addressing the problems that they think they have.
So I know you got to run. I can work on this stuff and share it with you, and you can let me know a next step.
Yeah. So let's do this. So create a Google Doc that you can share with me,
Hmm.
and just say, hey, these are, and this is going to be written at the top. These are all the problems that my ideal client thinks they have or that I've heard, and make a very clear note. P.S. None of these should be problems that I know they have. So what
Or
I
not
want,
what I think they, or I
not what,
think,
not what you know they are. You know the mission, mission, vision, and value is not written to the way that it should be. They
okay.
don't think that. After you show them, you can prove it, but having to show and prove somebody in marketing doesn't work. So we're looking for that fine line before anybody's worked with you and before you've even opened your mouth. All the complaints that people have ever that you've ever heard about culture, retaining employees, their vision, like there's going to be 10 to 15 to 20 problems that people have complained about or are currently complaining about their culture, hiring, and retention process.
Well, I mean, they do want to retain their best people. I mean,
Right.
that's a
So
big thing.
that's going to be one of 20 things on your Google Doc. But until we get hyper clear on the difference between the shit they're complaining about and the stuff that is the actual root cause underneath what they're complaining about, that's the difference. So we can even say, I'm making shit up. Um, uh, Man, people, they're what they think their problem is they looked good on paper, but they fooled us with their culture fit or their vibe check or whatever the kids say now, right? So that's the problem that they think they have. As an example, and I could be wrong, the problem they have is the person that you hired isn't even clear on what your culture is. Or you're not clear on what your culture is. So how can you possibly hire somebody if you're not even clear on what the culture is? That's a huge difference. That's one of 15 to 20 things that you could figure out that's a micro problem that a lead magnet could be built around.
Got it.
Is that cool?
Crystal.
All right, brother. By the way, my wife says to me once a day, are you mad at the people that you talk to? I'm like, no, I get very fired up about it. I love doing this. I love figuring it out.
Look,
Um,
I'm glad that you're passionate about this stuff. I am too, and you're helping me look at it differently.
yeah.
I
So
like it.
just as a stupendously simple, as a stupendously simple exercise, I always tell people, um, oh no, you're thinking with your expert brain. You have to rip your expert brain out, and I
I'm
literally
putting that at the top of the Google Doc.
put your prospect brain in, speak to them in the words that they're what they think is up. So create the Google Doc after this Zoom has saved. Also put a link to this Zoom in that Google Doc,
Hmm.
and then I'll
Yep.
take a peek. I'll give you some. I'll just give you my unsolicited. Well, I guess it's solicited. I'll give you my unvarnished opinion of what I think should happen next.
Okay. Should I wait until I mean, like a couple of days, I think, to do all this stuff in terms of do I map get at least a handle on that $1,000 thing, or
Well, I don't.
or
I
would you say
can't.
just do this thing first?
Well, I just want to make sure that I can, because here's what's going to happen. Your $1,000 thing and that triage is going to be born out of whatever this lead magnet is, right? So if
So
we're
I'll
doing,
do this first. Let's start
yeah.
small. Start small. We can deal with that down the road.
Because how we position the triage is based on what? What the hell the lead magnet, what their problem is. So start there. I'll just drop this is the email I want you to
Sure.
share it with because let's see here. I got sun in my eyes. make sure that says team at Stack Digital. Yeah, that's good.
Yep,
All right, brother. I appreciate you.
got it.
Thanks for jumping on. I'll let you know what I think makes the most sense after this.
All right, let's go.
All right, brother. Have a good one, man.
Thank you, Sterling.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Ciao.